Okay, this will be a little thing on economics and why economic reductionism is good. There's no other way to analyze human action than economics. People may say that it's a very bold claim, but it's really not that bold. All human action assumes some sort of goal. Like, you have goals. If the goal is to just, you know, even if you're lying down in bed, depressed and morose, you have a goal and you're doing what needs to be done, or what you believe needs to be done to achieve that goal. So all human action is driven towards some sort of goal, even if it's cutting your wrists. And say, for example, you have a person who wants to feel good about himself, wants to feel like a general person. They want to feel to themselves, relative to themselves, that they are a generous person. They may decide to give some money to either a poor person on the street or give money to a charity itself. And you could say, well, then the good feeling is coming from the bum to the person giving the money, or the good feeling is coming from the charity to the person giving the money, or however you want to describe it. It's just an exchange being made, and it can be modeled as an economic exchange between individuals. Similarly, a hug. Someone wants to give someone else a hug, right? Two people may want to hug each other, and they may both value the hug. One person will almost certainly value it just a little bit more than the other person, but they're both getting consumer surplus, and so they're both more than willing to hug each other. Or you could have one person who wants to hug another person, and the other person, isn't really, just kind of puts up with it because they value not having an awkward moment, by running away from a hug. For the rest of the evening or whatever. Like, say it's a family reunion and a relative you don't like comes up to hug you. You may just decide to, hug them. Not because you want to hug them per se, but because, you want to go along with the evening and not have things be awkward. Okay. So all human action can be modeled in all these exchanges, just like economics. Now, what people will do is they'll say, well, okay, I got you, but I draw the line between goods and services and interpersonal relations. I refuse to call interpersonal relations economics. Well, fine, you can draw that line, but it's an arbitrary line. Now, what are these things having to do with political movements? For example, like a religious movement or a political movement, right? Labor movement or something like that. What's that? Well, it's actually just a whole bunch of individuals, and fundamentally, this, quote, movement, close quote, is nothing more than a higher level conceptualization of the actions of all these individuals. And now an individual may think, well, I want higher wages. And before the labor movement, he may have had a more sane economic outlook and said, well, have higher wages, my employer's going to go out of business, or if I have higher wages and the state bails the business out or does something like that, and so it ends up effectively depressing the wages across all other industries. I don't want to do that. Right? May have had a sane economic outlook, but then is propagandized by a bunch of labor union stuff, and so his view of the world changes, and so his goal of having higher wages remains the same, but now he has a bunch of retarded economic ideas, and so he advances, to smash the capitalist exploiters, or and to pit workers against management. So, but of course, all these individuals are doing that, right? And they're doing that, and it's how do I describe this? Because there are individuals around them who have changed their views in relation to labor relations, the individuals then change their views in relation to labor relations. I don't know how you explain that. Like, each worker has a goal to achieve higher wages. Before the labor movement, the worker thought that what he was being paid now was fair and what all that could be reasonably expected. Then the labor union comes along and says, hey, you can get higher wages. Here's a presentation as to why you can get higher wages, and it would be good for you, it would be good for society, blah, 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 blah. And so now the worker still has the same goal, but he has some new information, and so he takes different means to achieve that goal of highest wage practicable. So, but even that can be modeled down at the individual economic actor. Political movements can all be modeled down to the individual economic actor. Of course, these individual actors are affected by other individual actors, and this is then conceptualized as a political movement. But that's just an aggregation, right? Similar to consciousness or values or an agreement. I mean, this is all just conceptualization of atoms, if you want to get down farther than that. So, and lastly, every problem or issue affecting many more than 200 people can only be dealt with by economic analysis. Values are given, and for example, like if you want to talk about any government policy, it's going to involve some sort of restriction on behavior, and that's going to have impacts on. And you may call it economic or not. I mean, but it's all, what was that Mises called it? Catalactics, right? It's all means to ends, okay? And it can all be described in the language of economics. So, whenever you're talking about any law or any control or any tax or any wealth redistribution scheme, you have to deal with economics. Any policy, any law, any control, it all requires economics. Now, this and people who bash this and say, well, there's more to things than economics, I think they have kind of a simplistic view of economics. For example, like an example of this that pops into my mind is the voluntary collective. That is, you can have some people who value equality. Now, I totally don't get it. I totally don't get why people value equality, but they do, okay? So they value equality. And so what they are willing to do is they're willing to, sacrifice the perks of not being a part of a commune in order to be part of a commune, in order to have a more equitable distribution of wealth, whatever, because they value that. They value equality qua equality. That's what they value, and so they're willing to, means to ends, and that's their ends. Okay, so economic analysis deals with values. Like, you can value something, and we do an analysis about how you achieve that which you value. If you value the well-being of the bottom 1%, well then, it would take a little while, but we could explain why a completely free market would be the best off for the bottom 1%. Probably in about 20 years. Okay. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say here, and that's why economic reductionism is good, and why be big fans of economic reductionism. People who poo-poo economic reductionism typically don't understand economics and are typically appealing to some mystical social forces. Oh, I still have a minute. What should I say? Yeah, people say, well, they value things other than economics. No, values are a given. like that's just it. When people say, well, they value non-economic things, no, all values are plugged into the utility function, right? If you value certain things being outlawed that you consider relevant to morality, well, that's just a value that can be analyzed in economic fashion. Right? It's just values. Okay, everything can be analyzed this way. Like, everything. Well, not everything. Like, all purposeful action can be analyzed this way. And this is what Mises was talking about in Human Action. And in case anyone didn't know, this is kind of a indirect response to Brain Police's stupid video. Yeah, Brain Police didn't read Human Action. Right? I can tell by his criticism of economic reductionism that he has not read Human Action. because he doesn't even, like, he says he read Human Action. Now you can read Human Action and disagree with it, but he says he read Human Action, and he's not even, the problems with what he's saying, he's not even addressing them. Okay, he's not even, like, these ideas that I'm presenting right here, like, they're not even popping into his head, which would make sense because he has not read Human Action, even though he said he did, because Brain Police is a liar.